Today we're going to talk about some troublesome things that are happening, and we're going to dive directly into it, wasting no time. Things are happening that are not cool. Transgenderism is a corporate fiction. You can see on your screen here, this is a top-down movement. It's corporatism. This is why we're hammering on this so much lately, because there are a lot of young people out there today who are identifying this way, and we care about those people. And we can see what's being done to them.
This is something that's been endorsed by most major medical organizations. But when you lift the hood and you look underneath what's going on, what you find is that these organizations are relying on this organization called the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. And when we look at those files, which includes both these written files but also videos, you see that the doctors, surgeons, therapists, and others that are involved in it, they admit that the parents and the kids do not understand that they are facing lifelong sterility as well as potentially a significant loss of sexual function. They don't understand these treatments, and that's called informed consent, which is right up there with do no harm. And so I think this is a really, a violation of medical ethics. They're also claiming that there's this evidence, but in fact, it's not scientific evidence. It's not evidence that's based on, properly controlled studies over time. The most shocking thing, one of the most shocking things, there's a lot of shocking things in there, is the ways in which they don't actually follow up with their patients. In other words, you'll see surgeons say, well, as far as we know, these things have gone well, or we don't know after 6 months. So you don't have a proper long-term study. And we do now know there's been several studies now debunking this claim, this false claim that somehow suicide risk is higher if you don't do these radical interventions. It appears as though quite the opposite is the case, and that there's a huge amount of regret. And much of what we see in the WPATH files are doctors and therapists dealing with detransitioners, dealing with people experiencing serious regret about the loss of their ability to have children or about their ability to achieve sexual function in the ways that most people are able to. We also see a lot of people on the autism spectrum being misdiagnosed with gender dysphoria. And then finally in the files, we see people with schizophrenia and people with what used to be called multiple personality disorder being diagnosed with gender dysphoria and being prescribed these very radical interventions, both the drugs and the surgeries. It does appear that most people's gender dysphoria goes away when they go through puberty and they start to become an adult. And so I think one question is, why are we doing these experiments on people under the age of 18 and people that are clearly suffering from other psychiatric disorders or serious mental illness, when really we should be addressing those things first and allowing nature to take its course and people to go through puberty. I personally am the father of 2 children. I think puberty should be viewed as a human right. I don't think it's right to be depriving kids the right to go through puberty.
And I also wanted to ask you about one of the shocking things I saw in the WPATH files. It seemed like they had never really considered that they might have actually been permanently altering the bodies of their subjects, even as publicly we are told that these things are entirely reversible.
It was strange to watch these people acting like this was some great puzzle or mystery, as opposed to saying, wait, maybe we should stop doing this. Like maybe this is why I think a lot of people look at this and we just kind of go, these doctors, it is a kind of quack doctors. They're really so out of touch that they are sitting here talking about these problems, but it never occurs to them that maybe they shouldn't be doing those radical interventions in the first place.
This is not all that's going on, folks. Look at this, if you can stand it.
Fox between the knees, and that's it. Fallon Fox. Holy cow. Game over.
It's just a ladies' MMA, right? No big deal. Now, that woman was just stronger, right? That's all it is.
How you feeling right now? I'm feeling excellent. That was sweet, huh?
Oh, no.
Did you like that?
Oh,
yeah!
No. Oh, no. What was that? Let's hear that one more time.
How you feeling right now? I'm feeling excellent. That was sweet, huh? Did you like that? Yeah!
On the left, just an average guy, right? Hanging out. MMA fighter, right? On the right, fully transitioned. A woman. Well, what happened? He crushed this woman's skull. All right, well, fractured her skull. That is utter madness, my friend. Riley Gaines ambushed physically at San Francisco State University.
This way. Yeah, you fucking trans bitch. I fucking see you. It's just me.
Now keep in mind, Riley was being pushed around and punched by a man. He was wearing a dress, and his preferred pronouns are female, but he's a man. All right. Why are they so mad, you might ask? Right? If they're that mad, surely they have a good reason, right?
Bye, bitch! Bye, bitch! You're dressed like a communist. Fuck you! Fuck you!
Sorry for the language, but this is what's happening.
Trans women are women! 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 Trans women are women!
So trans women are women. Why are they so mad at Riley Gaines? Well, Riley Gaines was an NCAA swimmer from the University of Kentucky. On the left, there, Leah Thomas. That's William. Name's William. Who was ranked 462nd in NCAA swimming in the male division. And then he transitioned to swim in the women's division. Now they say he transitioned. All he actually did was what they call a social transition. Preferred pronouns and a new name. Me still, very much a male competing in women's sports.
At UK, I proudly finished my career as a 12-time NCAA All-American.
You're one of the best, if not the best person to speak on this. And obviously this is about Will Thomas, who has become Leah Thomas and competed against women and beat women. Can you just share, and beat women in the pool, let me make sure I clarify that. But Riley, can you explain like your competition with him and kind of how this is going about?
Yes, so last year was my senior year. And about November, middle through of our season, I was ranked third in the nation behind one amazing female athlete who I was very familiar with because like most sports, your top tier athletes tend to know each other.
Yeah, yep.
But ranking first was a person I had never heard of before. And of course, this name was Leah Thomas. But at the time, just looking at this on paper, it didn't really make much sense to me because this person was a senior and I'd never heard of them and came out of nowhere and was leading the nation by multiple seconds in multiple events ranging from the 100 free, which is a sprint, all the way to a mile, which is a distance event. And so typically, I mean, think of running, your fastest 200-meter runner is not going to be your fastest 5K runner.
Yeah.
And so there were so many red flags, but it never once occurred to me that this could be a man just because that was so far out of reach.
Yeah. That's called common sense.
Yeah, right, I know. And so a couple days after these nation-leading times were posted, an article was posted disclosing that Leah Thomas did in fact formerly swim on the men's team for 3 years. And so I'm reading this and I'm like, wait, so this is a guy? And when I read this, I was shocked, of course, but I truthfully felt relieved because when you look up Will Thomas at this point, you can see that they were ranked 462nd at best.
Yeah, couldn't cut it
in the men's division. And so seeing that on paper, I thought surely the NCAA wouldn't let this person compete with us. But of course, that's not what we saw. Yeah. And so that first day at our NCAA championships, we all sat on the sidelines as Leah Thomas became the fastest female in the country, winning a national title in the 500 freestyle, beating out, Olympians, American record holders, the fastest females of all time. And that next day was when Leah and I raced each other and we swam the 200 freestyle. And crazily enough, we tied. But the NCAA official looks at me and says, great job, y'all tied. The trophy goes to Leah.
What?
We'll eventually mail you yours. And so I kind of look at him and I quickly question him and I'm like, okay, I understand there's one trophy, don't account for ties, but what's your thought process on giving it to Leah? Why are you so adamant? And he said, well, for photo purposes, Leah has to have it.
Wow.
You can probably relate to how Riley Gaines is feeling now. Did he figure out a scheme, a way to be successful? Was he truly dealing with... We don't know. What we do know is that it worked. And what we do know is that the people around him and the people at these institutions, the institutions have been captured. That's why they had to give the trophy to William, because that's what's required now. So last night she was given the speech and she was She had to be rushed out of there. She had to stay they had to keep her in a room, in a hallway for like 3 hours. Riley Gaines' husband, he said, quote, "She told me she was hit multiple times by a guy in a dress. I was shaking. It made me mad. It makes me sick to feel so helpless about it. She was under police protection and was still being hit by a man wearing a dress." Unquote. Her quote on Twitter was, she said, "The prisoners are now running the asylum at San Francisco State University." She says, "I was ambushed and physically hit by a man." Gaines said, "This is proof that when women need sex-protected spaces," in other words, what she's saying, typically in our culture, it was always understood that a woman's bathroom was a protected space. Dudes don't go in there. Some of it's for safety, some of it's for modesty and privacy. So in the past year, her goal has been speaking at universities to educate her peers about the experience she had and what the impact of the growing number of biological males in women's sports will do to the integrity of the sport and to the integrity of Title IX. One of the things she said on Twitter was, "Leah Thomas is not a brave, courageous woman who earned a national title." She said, "He is an arrogant cheat who stole a national title from a hardworking, deserving woman. And the NCAA is responsible for that." Another thing that happened was ESPN did a special on the history of women's sports. And they featured this gentleman. Utter madness. Not only that, we covered the Dylan Mulvaney story here recently, and not only does he do ads for Bud Light, he has endorsements with Tampax. Right? Yeah, it's bizarre. Well, but what's that have to do with the story today? Well, look what Nike has done. You're an essential component to the success of your community. We welcome comments that contribute to a positive and constructive discussion. Be kind, be inclusive, encourage each other, but hate speech, bullying, or other behaviors that are not in the spirit of a diverse and inclusive community will be deleted. So,
Grandpa's feeling a little frisky today.
Here's old Bob Rock's response.
Let me say something to all you and be as clear and concise as possible.
I guess he might be a little more convincing if he actually had a southern accent, but that's pretty good. Whoa! What is this? Yeah, let's just stop it right there. This is how people feel. People see a man fracturing the skull of a woman and everyone cheering for it, and it upsets us. Too many of us are caught in the riptide-like tenets of this techno-religious cult, but don't dismiss it. Don't think this is just a passing fad or something too unsavory for you to pay attention to. This is the front line. This is where it's happening. They're coming for your kids. They're going to silence you if you don't inform yourself and learn how to respond. Someone and myself believe that it's very important that you are informed and that you're edified. It's not enough to just get good and mad. You might be like Kid Rock and just go postal on a few cases of Bud Light. We're not solving anything with that, are we? But I understand. I feel like that sometimes, but can't really trust our instincts. See, that's the opposite of what the world tells you. But the current iteration of this ideology established by the technocracy that we're living in is meant to ensconce us in a virtual or cyber world to which the natural world is subjected. To convince the whole nation, a lot of the world, that now there is a new kind of human. There is a unique type of human in the world now that no one ever knew about before, or that was suppressed. And this new kind of human is untethered to the biosphere. They're not like the rest of us mere biological people. These people are supernatural. The media and the politicians are helping to manifest all of this virtual reality by driving the narrative, right? By affirming the idea that there's a new type of human, this unique, ethereal human that's unattached to the ecosystem, right? And they need special rights within the law and society.
LGBTQI plus kids are resilient. They are fierce. They fight back. They're not going anywhere. And we have their back. This administration has their back. We are so proud of the kids across this country who have organized protests and school walkouts to tell the politicians in their states to stop this legislative bullying.
Problem is, there's no such thing. And so to use it serves the purpose of affirming it in the society. It serves the purpose of programming. It's narrative. A lot of people don't realize they're doing it. That is how effective language can be. This is Tim Gill, a tech tycoon. For about 30 years now has been pouring money into the transgender movement. Of course, at first it was the LGB movement. And then came the T. Well, today it's just about the T. The T is getting the money. And Tim Gill has funded way more of this movement than any American ever. $500 million. Now, they'll say that they're fighting for rights and for equality and to give people a seat at the table. Well, Psychology Today reports that there are approximately, on the high side, about 0.014% of the population that has gender dysphoria. Well, that would be out of 330 million or so. This would be around 40 to 45,000 people in the nation. And we're changing everything for them. And that 40 to 45,000 number is highly skewed because of what we know has occurred with this social contagion. Social media was created by men. There was not a single woman involved. Did you know that? All social media were invented by not only men, but schizoid men. These are men who are self-involved. They don't interact with people much. Most of these men, even from just reading their biographies, you can see it's no secret. They're not trying to hide it. They were asexual or with very low sexual activity. So the men who invented social media created it in their own image. And of course, since they were asexual, social schizoid men, they created a tool which was geared towards them. The technology is designed for highly specific psychological profile, and yet is being used and abused and misused by other psychological profiles. And what this does is it creates a type of dissonance. And we're all feeling this dissonance. Anyone who uses social media for any amount of time, you begin to feel this dissonance. Exposure to screen time and social media, we know, tends to encourage depression and anxiety and suicide and so on. Some studies suggest that anxiety among teens increased 20% from 2007 to 2017. Severe anxiety, severe life-threatening anxiety, went from 3% in 2007 to 17% in 2017. We know that anxiety and depression among the young between ages 15 and 24 increased by 70% over the last 30 years. That is huge. That's huge. And the only thing that we can point to that's really been the most significant factor is 30 years ago, no social media. Since 2010, teen suicide has skyrocketed by over 30%. It's the first time in human history that the leading cause of death among teens is not any disease, it's not accidents. Social media is a tool for conditioning. Now, whatever it was created for, these people in control know why it's valuable. It is the greatest single marketing tool that's ever been invented. It markets directly to the individual giving them what they want. There's zero difference between people being called transgender and the rest of us, in the sense that we're all biological and exist as part of a sexually dimorphic species. We're all tethered to reality by our sex. This mysterious otherworldliness created around people who medically disown their sex is a corporate construction. It's a fiction. And it's purposeful, and it's powerful, and it's dangerous. There are people, men at the top of this movement, who are funding it, moving it. It is a corporate movement. The word transgenderism is a rebranding of the word transsexualism, which is rooted in transvestic fetishism, autogynephilia. Auto means self, gyna means feminine. Philia means love or attraction. So when a man is turned on, attracted to the image or seeing himself as a woman. So the point here is that women are being erased. Diversity and inclusion, it's just a new business mantra. Programs and language based on the normalization of body dissociation are being corporately cultivated all over the world. The programs being instituted appeal to emotions. They entice us to believe that companies care about people and that they want one big, happy, diverse work family, right? Because Nike cares about you, don't they? Look, they're behind me. They've taken up my cause. They care about me. They don't care about you. They're taking advantage of marginalized sectors of society. Most notably, those who imagine that they have a sex that is not male or female. And those who are identifying this way are under a spell that's being cast on them by the corporate establishment. It's making these vulnerable people believe that they're being given a place at the table, right? Make it a human rights issue, and then anyone who doesn't agree with you is being hateful, and they can be shut out. These manufactured sexes are being supported by, promoted, and advertised by big pharma, big tech, and big banking. This new, unrecognizable left sees no irony in all of this behavior. They don't get the contradiction. This is the gender industry that we're seeing. And with projected profit margins reaching into the billions by the year 2026 for surgeries on healthy sex organs alone, and the amount of advertising curated to sell it, it's going to be very profitable indeed. But how has the classical liberal movement been so duped that they can't see that they're being culled by corporate speculators who are just creating new markets for more profits out of sex? How can a movement that claims to be about revolution and liberation and individualism not see the glaring contradiction of calling a movement for corporate profit off of young adults and children's bodies a human rights cause? How do they not understand that corporations do not care about anybody's identity unless those identities are opening up markets? They're marketing disembodiment. Gender, currently being promoted as revolutionary human rights movement to set us free, is an industry posing as social progress for the people. It seeks to deconstruct human reproductive sex for profit and human engineering. Many of these people, especially these young kids, are suffering. Right? They're not just crazy throwaways. They have been affected, traumatized by social media, mainstream media, by these technocrats who are doing it to them. So you got to boldly refute the arguments of the activists and show gentleness and love to the people, the young ones. So we have a duty to fulfill at this time. Ultimately, the battle against transgender ideology will be won with truth and love, with grace and charity, proclaim the truth with love. And even if we lose some of the battles, and we will, Christ has already won the war. We're on the winning team. We've seen the end of the story. And we win. So let's act like it. Let's act like it. And let's be a source of comfort and hope, true hope, for these confused but precious, naughty, rowdy, and frustrating and insulting image bearers of God. Let's show them what truth looks like with our behavior. Because we're salt and light in the world. We're purifiers of the corrupt. We're the preservers of the pure. We're the exposers of evil. And we're the bringers of God's truth of salvation by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone. And that is always to the glory of God alone. And our foundation of truth for faith and practice and all we need to know for living here in this world as Christ's representatives is Scripture alone. These are our most important foundational truths, and they cannot be compromised. And by God's grace, they will not be conformed to the world, but they will be transformed by the renewing of their mind so that they can show and demonstrate the good, perfect, acceptable will of God. So if we're going to be faithful in our obedience to the Lordship of Christ, that means to submit all the areas of our lives to Him and live according to His commandment. And He's going to sustain us through whatever trial He sees fit to bring about in the world. The world's not the church, and the church is not the world. And it's time for the church now to be the church. And whenever we see our government given over to all manner of evil and idolatry, then we stand firm. We have the truth. Stand firm just like Daniel did. Just like Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah did. To believe and obey, even if it kills us. And it may. But it's worth it. So let our presence and participation in this revolutionary moment always magnify the Lord as we honor His eternal standard, beginning with speaking the truth in love. Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. Proverbs 25:11 says, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver.
Widespread medical malpractice on children and adults who seek care through the organization. The group Environmental Progress has published the raw files in a shocking new report. Environmental Progress founder Michael Shellenberger wrote, the WPATH files show that what is called gender medicine is neither science nor medicine.
It's therapeutic. It's for your own good. In other words, social justice is that which feels right. Doesn't have anything to do with that which is right. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims, therapeutic, may be the most oppressive. It may be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies who torment us for our own good, will torment us without end because they do so with the approval of their own conscience. Why? Because to be cured against one's will, to be cured of states or conditions which we might not even regard as disease, is to classify us with infants, imbeciles, and domestic animals. In other words, it's to herd us like cattle. Humane pretensions which have served to usher in every cruelty of the revolutionary period in which we live. These are the precious balms which will break our heads. Be war, or ye be woe. Knoweth your friend from your foe.